Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Eric. He is Mon. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. We got a lot of Bengal news to get to, guys. A lot of stuff has happened since the show on Sunday. Since Monday. It's been a little crazy week so far. But before we get into that, Mon, how's your week been going, buddy? You look very athletic tonight. You look very athletic. You look like you're ready to go out and maybe hit the gym. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Jake, you are correct. I am athletic. I don't look it. I am. If I was 35 years younger, they would be paying me $40 million a year. I mean, I'm a certified specimen. Laugh all you want, but it's a fact. It's a fact. But everything is going great. Bengals win. It's just an odd situation in Bengaldom right now. You know, we got that sliver of hope, and I'm sort of in off-season mode, but I'm excited about the remaining 4 games. And, maybe the Bengals didn't have much luck the first 10, 12 games of the season. Maybe we get some of that luck to get us in the postseason. We'll see, but we're going to talk about that. And I appreciate you noticing me working out. Thanks.
Eric, how's your week been, buddy?
My week's been good. I mean, you can't beat a week where you start Monday night off with a Bengals victory. I will say, I think it was a Jerry Rice quote, or it was somebody's quote, but to Mon saying he's athletic, the quote was, if you're good at something, you'll tell people. If you're great at something, they'll tell you. So if you have to go around telling people you're athletic, I don't know, Mon.
He told me I look athletic. He was the one that noticed.
Right.
I mean,
I said it. Mon didn't.
Walk, just like Jamar Chase said this week, he doesn't have the captain's C on his chest, but he's a captain. But he doesn't do it like normal captains. He goes out there and does it on the field with hundreds of catches and thousands of yards and touchdowns and lots of gritty. So.
Well, once again, guys,
gritty for us.
Yeah. Oh God, listen. If Mon hits a gritty, listen. I know. Every one of our listeners would love to see the mustache hit the gritty. I know every single one of them would. I know I would. All right, guys, let's get to we're going way off. Let's get to a week in Bengaldom that has just been nuts, guys. I mean, let's rewind to Monday Night Football. Obviously, again, we went live after the game. We talked about the game. Don't want to rehash the game. A great game, a good win. Kind of has given us a little bit of hope, right? And rebellions are built on hope. For all you Star Wars fans out there, I don't know if you know that, but rebellions are built on hope. But listen, hey,
Darth Bengal's in here. He knows it. Darth Bengal's in here. And I just sent you a message, young man. Please check your phone.
Oh, yes. I just saw that on our Twitter, too. Look at that. Yes. Yeah. That is awesome. Darth Bengal, yes, we will get in touch with you, buddy. That is awesome. Thank you. All right, so, guys, rewinding back to Monday Night Football. Bengals win 27-20 in Dallas. Again, I don't want to dive into this and go crazy, but obviously let's start with the Joe Burrow news. His house gets broken into. He now becomes another pro athlete who, while they are off on an away game, we saw Patrick Mahomes. It happened to Travis Kelce, I believe. It's happened to some pro basketball players as well recently. So Joe started off his press conference not very happy, as he should be, not very happy that again, this happened to his house. And Joe's a very private guy. All of us that have been following his career, we know that. I think it is it's definitely becoming an issue. I think I saw where Tua is hiring like armed security guards. Is that
he
true?
ve- he Tua took the Florida way. He said, "Just so you know, if you come to my house, you're going to get the Florida treatment, and you're not going to get in because there will be armed guards at his house." So yeah, Tua's going very Florida
That's
man on him, and
that's
and
crazy.
uh,
So
and Joe should go that way too. It's not good what's going on out there.
no, it's not. It's not. And again, I don't want to dive into it. Ma, any thoughts about this? This craziness going on. It's like pro athletes. These I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's the same group or what it is, but these pro athletes, there's a lot of issues right now. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you said, there's been a string of them. I guess the NFL has been warning people about it. I, it's terrible. I'm glad nobody was hurt, but just watching the press conference, you could tell he was in a lot of pain. Obviously, he's upset about it, but he's a very, very private person, and a lot of that stuff was exposed. Things he doesn't want out there. Exposed is a bad word. He's private. He doesn't want his personal life plastered on every major newspaper in America. I felt his pain. I sensed his pain in that press conference. I really felt bad for him. And I hope
Yes.
they catch the person that did it. And I hope the media gives him his privacy.
And one of the biggest parts about that, and he didn't elaborate on it, but one of the biggest parts of it, and kind of happened to Joe Mixon last year, was his address got out there. Yeah, people know where he lives, but his address got reported out there, and all of a sudden now you know his address is out there. Then we hear about his house sitter, Olivia, who happens to be a Sports Illustrated model sitting at his house. So all that new information gets out there, and now all of a sudden you go from a guy that we know very little about. Now all of this private information is out there that let them share it in their own time. But now it's all out there, and yeah, that's got to sting.
Isn't that what we love about Joe, though? I mean, that I don't know. I love the fact that he keeps to himself and he's very grounded. I think that's why I think that's what helps make him the best quarterback in the NFL is he doesn't put himself out there. He's not trying to be seen. He's not trying to be some kind of diva or anything like that. He's very grounded, and I just love that about him. And I think that's a reason why he's so successful. I really do believe that he's humble and he's grounded, and I love that about him. I'm with you guys. Hopefully they figure out what's going on with these pro athletes because again you know obviously they have a platform and that is part of their job, right? Joe talked about that in his presser. It's the part of his job that he hates is that he has to be out there and do interviews and do all these things, but that is part of their job. But obviously nobody should have their privacy broken into. Yes, Mon, go ahead.
No, no, no. I agree. I agree. And like I said, hopefully the local media just and the national pundits don't bombard him with questions because it obviously makes him uncomfortable. The guy is one of the top stars in the NFL. Like he said in his press conference, he doesn't get much privacy, so he deserves it, and I hope he gets it.
Well, Houday again. Houday to everybody out there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Olivia, Houday, Olivia. But yes, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. All right, so moving on from that, Joe Burrow, and not only Joe Burrow, but Jamar Chase as well, talked a little bit after the game about T. Higgins, and not just T. Higgins, but the situation with Burrow and Chase and Higgins. Burrow spoke pretty much as bluntly as we have heard Burrow speak about anything. That he not only would be very disappointed if Higgins is not back in a Bengals uniform, but he hinted to the fact that, listen, we can get this done. I know we can get this done. T. Higgins talked about it after the game and said, we've been discussing this. Basically, don't believe what you hear from the media. So we're hearing this from Jamar. Jamar said he would pay. He would pay for T. Higgins' salary. So obviously, these three guys want to be Cincinnati Bengals. That's the thought and the feeling I know I got after all of that. But Mon, what happens yesterday is T. Higgins parts way with really. I feel like he's a Bengal hater, to be honest with you. But his agent, who obviously is Jesse Bates' agent as well, a guy who does not work very well with the Browns or the Blackburns, and T. Higgins parts way with him this week after Joe Burrow comes out and says, basically, listen, we are going to have T. Higgins back. I am going to make sure of it. Mon, what are your thoughts with Higgins separating himself from Mullighetti and possibly now, I don't know, this is going to get very interesting offseason. What are your thoughts on it, Mon?
Yeah, the positive thing, Mullighetti, obviously it's personal with the Bengals. Philosophically, I mean, I think the NFL is going to be trending towards what Mullighetti wants, more guaranteed money, guaranteed contracts. The Bengals simply don't do that. I don't think they've ever had any success with any of his clients. So T. Higgins moving on from there is very positive. I think Joe Burrow's comments are the most positive thing. Joe Burrow is not a Brown family member or a Blackburn family member, but Joe Burrow has almost as much pull as them. If he's upset, they're going to listen because people buy Joe Burrow shirts. They buy tickets for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And if they both want T. Higgins is going to come in. I think T. Higgins is going to sign a contract with the Bengals. Now, a lot of great takes on Twitter and people talking about it in the local media. Is it smart to do that because the Bengals have so many needs? You guys know that the Bengals have a lot of needs, a lot. But let me just say this right now. The Bengals are paying people good money for literally limited to no production. You know what? If you terminate 3 or 4 of those contracts, you're saving $40 million. You could sign T. Higgins. I would rather load up at a position where I know I'm going to get production instead of paying 4 or 5 guys that are giving you nothing. All right. You could, it's just, that's the way I look at it. And of course, people are going to talk about his injury history and all that. Well, I talked about that a few weeks ago. When you have a pulled hamstring, you're going to baby it a little bit if you don't have long-term security, and you should. I get it. It's a business decision, and he made those decisions. But the Bengals are a better team with T. Higgins.
100%. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Well, we had Joe Burrow double down on Wednesday. They gave him a chance to backtrack. They gave him a chance to do whatever he did. And he straight up said, T. Higgins is a need. We're a better football team with T. He is a need. It makes you wonder if there isn't something already on the table. But I mean, I'll put it out there now. This is 100% T. Higgins signing a long-term extension with the Bengals. Jake and I talked about it before Mon came on before the show. If you're not re-signing with the Bengals, there is absolutely no reason, unless something personal happened, there's no reason to leave Mullighetti. He gets his people the most money. He gets the most money guaranteed. And out on the open market, he would cash in. The only reason T. Higgins were to make this deal is because he wants to sign a long-term deal with the Bengals. David Mullighetti might have said, you know what, my players always get guaranteed. T might have said, I'm willing to accept it. And David said, no, that's not how my players roll. And when you have that player wants to be flexible and the agent says no, what's going to happen? So to me, this is 100% he's got something in the works. It's going to be a long-term extension, maybe a 3 or 4 year extension. I wouldn't be surprised. They can't talk about it. They can't negotiate, but they can, stuff can be out there. They can have an understanding about what they're going to sign and when they're going to do it. And Joe talked about this when he signed his contract. They put some of those poison pills in there that allow him to restructure things and move money around to sign the players he wants. And it's happening. It's just whether, when does the new league year open? Was it March 3rd? Can we sign him before then? I think we could sign him after the season, right?
I think I
Got to
think you have
wait
to
for
wait, right,
new league
Mom?
year. You have to wait
Is
for
it?
the new league year. You have to wait for the
But
new
if it's
league
our
year.
players, do you have to? I thought that's just for
You have
open
to.
market.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think you have to wait for the new league year.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
Which, yeah,
Well, and I agree. I think great points by both of you. I agree. I think T leaving Mulligetta just tells you one thing, and that is that I think there is something already on the table. I think there's something in the works, and I think Mulligetta did not like it, and T basically told him, "Look, you got a choice." And again, I'm obviously speculating this, but uh, why else would this happen when why else would Joe Burrow make that statement on Monday night and then 2 days later D Higgins separates from the one blockade between the Bengals and T Higgins? And I think it'd be interesting too, and again, I know there's probably a chance we'll ever know this, but I think it would be interesting to know if maybe the Bengals made an offer that T liked, and Mulligetta turned it down, and maybe that pissed T off. I don't know, but I will say this: I agree with you, Eric. The only way this happens is because T Higgins is going to be a Cincinnati Bengal for a long time. I truly do believe that, and I think it's interesting that it all kind of happened together with all this other stuff going on. Mon, I want to talk. I want to get your take on this because you always have a great take on it, and you kind of talked about it before. The Bengals have some players that we can talk about if you want to. I know some of the names you're going to throw out there, but the Bengals have some players on this team that are not producing at all, that are making a crap ton of money and are not producing on the field. And I just feel like the Bengal fans that say that we don't need T Higgins would be the same Bengal fans that if T were to leave and go blow up for another team, they would be the fans saying, "Oh, you shouldn't have let him leave. You can't let good players leave." This is a situation where, yes, the Bengals have holes on defense, Mon, but you can't let good players leave, right? I mean, the Bengals need to learn from their past mistakes of letting guys walk, right?
yeah, yeah. Darth Bringle brought up that great point about letting people leave. It's true. When you draft and develop players, you use a draft pick. You spend money on them. You spend quality time coaching them up, making them better pros. You keep them, guys. I'm not trying to live in the past. We are paying greatly for Jesse Bates. We're paying greatly for Kevin Zeitler. All draft picks that absolutely were great Bengals, and we have not been able to replace them. Yeah, it's only been 2 years for Jesse Bates. It's been 7 years for Kevin Zeitler, or 6 years, and we have not been able to replace his production. He is playing at an all-pro level now, and
What
I
about
mean,
Whitworth? What about
yeah,
Whitworth?
Whitworth. Exactly. I mean,
I mean,
we could
we're
go
still
back.
paying for that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we are, but I also look at it this way: as bad as a decision that was, we tanked. It brought us Joe Burrow because we were
Yes, I
so
know.
bad. We were
I
so
know.
bad. But no, but what the deal is, I mean, the Bengals have a history of this 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up until now. They let good players leave. A lot of their replacements, the players that have gone, have turned out to be pretty decent pros. A majority of the time, they have never lived up to the player that left. And you're never moving ahead. You're always, you're sort of staying stagnant or falling a little bit behind. You got to keep the players that are productive and are good pros. I get it. Not every team can keep every solid player. You can't do that. But that's where, look what the Ravens do. They package, they send people off and get draft picks. The more draft picks you accumulate, the better hit rates you have, because guess what? You're drafting more players, higher chance of hitting on them. But T. Higgins, hopefully he stays, because he has some good chemistry with Joe. And the Bengals, again, broken record. They're a better team with T. Higgins on the roster.
And you know what, too? I think part of the thing that we have to look at that plays into this is, and again, I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm just being honest. Is that the Bengals don't draft well? They really don't. I mean, yes, they've had some hits, no doubt about it. Every team does. and the Bengals have had some big hits. But Mon, you and I have talked about this. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, those guys were no brainers. I mean, they were no brainers. Anyone could walk up to the podium and pick those two guys. So that wasn't anything like the Bengals scouting department did some incredible job of finding those gems. The Bengals, they have struck out a lot more than they have hit. And I know you talk about this team, and you had said something about them a couple weeks ago, and I looked into it. Again, I'm the Los Angeles Rams they might have drafted better than anyone the last 2 years. They have hit on almost every single draft pick. Watching their game the other night, Mon, there were rookies and one-year players all over the field making plays. And the Bengals don't have that, right? So doesn't that have to be taken into account when you have somebody like T. Higgins and you just can't let him leave because Jermaine Burton, right? I mean, I know the guy is still young, but the Bengals just don't do a good job of replacing those elite players, right?
Yeah, you're right. The Rams, Bengal fans for the last but it's a great example because they went all in for the Super Bowl. They traded away first, second, third round picks. They went 2 years without a first and a second. I think they went 1 year without a first, second, and a third. The first pick was a fourth rounder. They hit on them. They had two guys, rookie, AFC, NFC Defensive Rookie of the Year, NFC Offensive Rookie of the Year were Rams. So, it shows you 20 plus people in the scouting department, and they are just killing their drafts. Now, I'm not here to stick up for Duke Tobin, but is it a development thing? These guys they draft, the Bengals draft, hey, good prospects, but they're just not developing under this coaching staff. What is it? Is it a mixture of both? Is it all the above? The Bengals from the top down, they need to look at the development of the coaching quality. Are they developing these players? Are they scouting properly? They need to look at everything because they need to revamp it. They need to update it. Paul Dehner yesterday mentioned this perfectly. He said it on the Bengal Jim show. He says they only have 6 scouts. He goes, I think the top scouts that they have are really smart individuals, very well respected in the NFL, but they need help. They need people below them because those guys are being run ragged. So, that was a valid point by him. Mike Potts, Radikovich, whatever his name is, they need assistants underneath them that can help them out. So we'll see.
Agreed. It's frustrating to me when Bengal fans say things like, we need, let this guy walk, let this guy walk, let these elite players walk, when the Bengals just don't do a good job of replacing them. And it really has, Mon. You said it earlier. It's really set us back. And this all goes back to the fact of the Bengals have got to start hanging on to these guys. They have got to start hanging on to these elite players that they are hitting on, like Jamar, like T. Higgins, the guys that they are hitting on, which, again, I know Jermaine Pratt's had a down year, but they did it with Logan Wilson. They did it with Jermaine Pratt. Those guys were playing lights out when they both got their contracts. Those were 2 situations where the Bengals went out and did what we asked them to do, and that is to re-sign these elite guys and not let them walk. Obviously, they let Jesse Bates walk and some other guys, but this T. Higgins thing, T. Higgins needs to be a Cincinnati Bengal. And listen, guys, the Bengals can find a way to replace defensive holes. They can find a way to do that. There's way to move money. There's way to, some of this dead weight that the Bengals are carrying. I'm talking about some of these players, Mon, that are not producing for us. When those guys go, that could open up some more opportunity too to add players, right?
Yeah, they have so many holes, and really, if you look at it, not as Bengal fans, we have a vested interest, we have an affinity for T. Higgins. If you're on the outside looking in and a pundit, it's silly to sign T. Higgins. Seriously, it is when you think about it, because all the holes that we have, but he
Yeah.
is so important to this team. And
Yes.
they have got to, they got to sign him. Guys, they have enough money to sign him and sign 5 other free agents. They do have that money. And they could make 3-4 more moves that might add $30 to $50 million to their $60 million cap availability. They should be very active in free agency. They only have 6 draft picks right now. They're going to have a spectacular draft, and they're going to have to be very active in free agency. The last 2 free agency cycles have destroyed this team.
Yes.
Destroyed this team.
Well,
we haven't replaced Larry Ogunjobi. We don't even talk about that enough.
Yes.
His 1 year in Cincinnati was a difference maker. 15 sacks coming from him and BJ Hill. 14 and a half.
Yes.
We haven't even come close to replacing that. It's been catastrophic for this defense.
And my argument, I've said this in our group chats a lot, is we pay this defense so much money, but they would get the same production, maybe better production, if you were playing all rookies out there. I mean, all that money is not getting us a dang thing. So my thought is sign T, sign Jamar, throw some cash at a couple of really good guards, continue and protect this amazing offense for years to come, and then your defense doesn't have to be perfect for this to work. Joe Burrow is going to continue to play like this. He's going to get better as long as you protect him. So if you put money into guards, you sign T, you sign Jamar, and then you hit on those big positions of need. What we've seen is the big position of need for the Bengals is that safety, that Jesse Bates type safety that can read a defense or read an offense, knows where the ball is going to go and is fast. You got to make that priority 1. You need to now go find your Jesse Bates replacement. That is number 1 on defense. That alone will get your defense better. We don't have to be the number 1 defense in the NFL. We probably never will be. We need to be the number 14th defense in the NFL. And you do that by getting a great safety, and then you start plugging some of those other holes, maybe with middle range free agents. Doesn't take a lot to get us to 14th best defense. And that's all Joe Burrow needs to go 14-3.
Well, I think you look at this roster, guys, and you look at guys like obviously Zach Moss. He's gone, right? It's gonna add a little bit of money. Trent Brown, he's gone. He's not coming back. Alex Kappa, a guy that you talk about all the time, on that right there. That saves you 10 mil, something like that, 10 mil. Sam Hubbard, what's Sam Hubbard? 10 mil,
roughly 10.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sam Hubbard. I mean, you're again. I love Sam Hubbard. He's a great dude, and he has done some great things in Cincinnati. But these guys are not producing on the field, and it is hurting this team. Mon?
We are. Yeah, you're right. I think we're starting to see a shift now. Last week, I think Sam Hubbard only played 22 snaps, and Murphy played over 30. That has to be a trend. They have to continue. Sam Hubbard's been a great Bengal. He's going to go down as one of the best Bengals of all time. His leg injuries have caught up to him. He hasn't been the same the last 2 years. You got to get the young guys in there. You got to get Jordan Battle to start. He is. You got to get all these young players. You got to see what you have. You got to see what you have going into the offseason, because they're going to play a big role next year. About free agency, I know we still got 4 games. We still got a chance to make the playoffs. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. The Bengals, Paul Dehner says it, Mo Egger, all these guys on Cincinnati media, local media, beat writers. You can't lose a Jesse Bates and replace him with a Jag, just a guy. You can't do that. We've done that 2 years in a row.
Yes, we have.
That is an unbelievable drop-off. Nothing against Sheldon Rankins. He's been sick. Praying for him. I'm hearing it's pretty serious. But Sheldon Rankins is a drop-off compared to DJ Reader. All right, and Larry Ogunjobi was a great Bengal for 1 year. Zach Carter, numerous guys coming in. Compared to Larry O, they're just guys. We can't replace good players with just guys. We gotta increase our talent pool. We need to sign 3 good defensive free agents. And we have to, out of our 6 picks, we needed to have 4 of them be defensive players early. Early, we have to. And we have to sign a really solid guard, a good player, not a guy, but a good player. We'll talk about that coming up in March, obviously, and leading up into that. But that's what the Bengals have to do. They have to improve their talent pool.
I agree. I mean, this roster and this team, again, I feel like, obviously, and I'm not the only one. I mean, you guys know this. The defense has just been absolutely piss poor all season. The offense is basically carrying this team on its shoulders. And I do believe that, Eric, I do believe that this offense is what this team is going to circle around. But you see, and you look at a team like Kansas City Chiefs, who, every week seem to find a way to win these close games. Patrick Mahomes is having a terrible year, but they have a solid defense, and that's what the Bengals need, right? They don't need the second best defense in the NFL. They need just a little bit above average. Just be a little bit above average, and this offense is going to kind of carry the way, Eric, right?
Yeah, no, that's it. They don't have to be great. They need to be what Lou wants them to be, bend but don't break. And that methodology worked for many years, but it broke this year, and injuries kind of made that happen. Injuries made it happen. Signing the wrong free agents made it happen. But we need to get back to that bend but don't break. And right now it's broken, and Joe's doing what he can to play defense by being a great offense.
Well, hopefully that's not Lou's call anymore. I don't mean to be a jerk about that, but hopefully we're not talking about Lou Anarumo next year. All right, guys.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Before we move on, my only thing with that is, my only problem with Lou, I think he's a great defensive coordinator. I still like the schemes that he comes up with, but sticking with the guy is too long. I don't know if it's a Lou call, but if it is, then he's got to go. Saying Geno Stone is our guy. If that's Lou actually talking, then that's an issue. But as Mon has pointed out before, that's most likely coming from up above, saying you got to play. We'll see.
I'm not. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Add on before we move on.
I just I'm not sticking up for Lou. Lou's not. I think they're going to replace him. But I think a lot of it has to do, he doesn't have a lot of talent. I'll knock him on this, though. A lot of high draft picks that were defensive players, and they haven't developed under him. So I can see the criticism there. But this roster, they've mentioned it, very reputable people, Twitter and local media. Is there a cornerstone player on this defense right now? There really isn't. It is depleted. It is really depleted. Can you name one guy that really strikes fear in anybody in the NFL? Okay, Trey Hendrickson.
Right? Yeah.
Anybody else? Right. I mean, there's really, I don't know, man. It's pretty bare.
I don't understand with the way Geno Stone was playing. Why can't Tyson Anderson see the film? He flashed in the preseason 2 years ago before he got injured, and he's so fast. He hasn't missed a tackle on special teams. Why wouldn't you give him a shot at safety? Especially, you did it. You pulled Cam Taylor-Britt so many times. Why wouldn't you have pulled Geno when that stuff was going on? And if the guy, if your argument is he doesn't know our calls, he doesn't know the defense, well, that is on the coach, because every one of your players should be able to step in at any moment. And if you don't have them prepared, then that's on the coach.
I think there's definitely an issue somewhere, right? Because let's be real about this. You don't see, there's just not a lot of rookies that play for the Bengals that in year one are contributing to the football team. I look around the NFL and watch all these other teams have rookies that are not only making plays, but are seriously contributing to their team winning football games. And you just don't see that with the Bengals. Amarius Mims is the exception of the rule, but which I knew that when the Bengals drafted him that he would be. But I'm
going to
that clip.
Play the clip
and roll it.
Roll the clip.
And roll it. No, but I mean, seriously, guys, I look around and I see all these rookies on all these other teams making plays, and it drives me nuts. I think somebody in the chat there said something about, the Bengals don't play these rookies unless somebody gets injured. That's so true. Like you don't see these rookies out there contributing. And is it a coaching thing? Is it a developmental thing? Is it Duke Tobin is the absolute worst general manager in the NFL? Because it's one of the two things. It's either Duke Tobin is terrible and needs to be fired, or this coaching staff cannot develop these players, because, guys, everyone else has rookies that contribute to their teams winning football games. Mom?
Yeah, I just want to give an example of Hubbard and Murphy. Some people on Twitter have said he's a bust. How is he a bust? He hasn't played a lot. And let's face it, Hubbard's making a lot of money. He's a Cincinnati kid. The coaching staff loves him. I don't care how good Murphy's playing. He's not gonna play more than Hubbard. Well, guess what? Last couple weeks, Murphy's played a lot more. I think the Bengals realized we need to give him an opportunity. Let's see his athleticism. He was a first-round pick. Let Murphy play 35, 40 snaps a game. He's going to get better every week. Listen, Sam Hubbard has wear and tear on his body. Great player. I think, his best football is behind him. I mean, I don't want to sound negative. I appreciate him. I think he's been a great Bengal. They got to play Murphy. They got to play Osai. Osai's quietly piecing, a pretty decent season. He's had 3 sacks in 3 consecutive games, or a sack in 3 consecutive games.
Right.
You gotta let these young guys play. Ivy, the guy Marco Wilson played really good the other day. Super athletic player from the University of Florida. Josh Newton's got to get better. They got to play him. And some of these comments, I'm sorry. Aaron Butler, thank you so much for checking out my physique. I really appreciate you. And
flex for Aaron, Mom. Flex for Aaron. Come on.
Yeah, and Bruce B, you're right. Cam Sample's injury is huge, because Cam Sample was quietly a very valuable reserve, and not having him this year has hurt the Bengals.
Listen, I think the other thing that we have to look at, and a lot of the listeners are commenting on this, and I agree with you guys, is there's a lot of players, guys, that have regressed, right? I mean, that to me points to coaching and developmental coaching, because there's a long list of players that have been good for the last couple years that have just fallen off. And we could sit here and name Evan McPherson and Cam Taylor-Britt and Jermaine Pratt. And you could even say Sam Hubbard. You could throw him in that mix. Von Bell, again, Geno Stone, 7 picks last year, nowhere to be found this year. I think there's a lot that goes into looking at this roster and seeing a lot of these guys that we are counting on week after week, and the regression that has occurred. And I think it all goes back to this coaching staff and how stale it is. I mean, guys, the interior of this offensive line is just awful. It is awful. Volson, we drafted Volson. We never developed him. He got benched. And then obviously Orlando Brown went down, and then they had to move Cody Ford back out there, and then Volson's back in. I mean, that's just a bad look altogether. Alex Kappa has been below average the last 2 years. Even Ted Karras is falling off. I mean, you got a guy like Matt Lee. Let the guy play. Let's see what these guys can do, right?
Yeah, I think thanks, John. I think,
don't throw comments. It distracts him, guys.
I know. I think I think Karras has played pretty well, actually. I think he's better at guard. You're right about Kappa and Volson. Kappa, his leg injuries have caught up to him. What scares me the most, Jake and Eric, about that, on the defensive side, we have 2 promising young players. 3, if you want to, Cedric Jackson, or Johnson was his name, from Mississippi. we have 3 promising young guys that have
Jackson, yeah.
Jackson, yeah, they have a
Yeah.
promising future. McKinley Jackson and kid from Michigan. God, I forgot his name all of a sudden.
Oh, you're talking about
Chris
Cedric
Jenkins.
Johnson. You're talking about the defense side of the ball. Cedric Johnson.
Yeah, we had
You're right.
Johnson,
Cedric
Jenkins, and
Yeah.
McKinley Jackson. Those guys are promising young players on the defensive line that I'm excited about. We don't have that on the interior offensive line. We have Matt Lee, center. He's a 7th rounder, though. Do we have any promising young guards waiting in the wings? We really don't. We have some practice squad guys, but they're practice squatters. So what I'm trying to say is we got to draft or go out and sign some quality interior offensive linemen, because guys, that's probably our biggest weakness on offense. And there's not, I mean, our skill players are elite, but that offensive line still needs upgrades.
All right.
Agreed.
We spent
go ahead.
Spent a lot of time talking about how we fix this. There's nothing wrong with it, guys. We just beat the Cowboys. We got 4 more games to go. We're going to win them all, and we're going to make it to the playoffs. There is a chance. I talked about this on the last show. Let's talk about this. There is a path for us to get to the wild card. There is a path for us to get in, to take down the Chiefs, to keep going, to run it all the way to the Super Bowl. And then we'll be looking and saying, oh my God, we did it again with a horrible defense and a horrible offensive line. Let's talk about it. We'll put the scenario up here for the Bengals to make the playoffs, and they have to win out, obviously.
Yes.
The Broncos need to go 1-3. Well, the Broncos' next 4 games are against the Colts, the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Chiefs.
Yes.
I see 3 losses in there right away.
Yes.
We also need the Dolphins to go 2-2. They play the Texans, 49ers, Browns, and Jets. Well, Texans and 49ers, that would probably be the 2, but this is the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised if Famous Jameis takes them out. And then the Colts need to go 2-2. And they play the Broncos. The Colts are the scary one because they've also got the Titans, the Giants, the Jaguars. But maybe old Callie can help us out there and take them out. I mean, there is a path here. Yes, it's hard for a team to go 1-3 in their last 4 games. But this is the NFL, and when your last 4 games look like that, I think there's a chance. What do you guys think? Jake?
All right. Well, again, I'm sure there are fans out there saying playoffs, right? But there is a chance. And listen, crazier things have happened. Obviously, in this situation, it's a lot of crazy things that have to happen. But let me say this before I get into this. There is no one in the NFL that want the Bengals to make the playoffs. There is not one team. And I promise you, the Kansas City Chiefs are praying. They are praying that the Bengals do not get the 7th seed. They are praying, because if the Bengals win that first game and go to Kansas City does not want to see the Cincinnati Bengals. I guarantee it. They do not want to see the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's talk about the Broncos first, because I think the Broncos situation is probably the most realistic. Going 1-3 is definitely a situation that can happen. Obviously, the Chargers, I think, are better. The Chiefs are better. The Bengals have to beat them. We actually want them to beat the Colts. And I saw somebody break this down, and it made sense. The Colts' schedule is the easiest of the 3, right? So we want the Broncos to beat the Colts this weekend, because that's going to help the Colts get to 2 losses. Because I think the other games the Colts play are the Jags, the Giants, and what was the other team? I don't see the Colts on there.
Colts play the Broncos, Titans, Giants, and Jaguars.
Okay, I don't see that on my screen. But okay, so the Titans as well. So the Titans, Jags, and Giants are maybe Callie can, like you said, come out and get a win for us. The Dolphins going 2-2 is very realistic too. It really is realistic. The Texans The 49ers are both better than the Dolphins. Obviously, the Browns and the Jets, who knows what can happen there. But this is, I know it's crazy for us to be talking about this because the Bengals defense is just so bad. But it's a very realistic situation, the Bengals getting into the playoffs, Mon. But obviously, it all starts with the Bengals having to win out. And I think that is the big piece of this thing is the Bengals are going to have to go into Pittsburgh and beat Pittsburgh. They're going to I think this week's a win no matter what. The Broncos in Cincinnati, I like that matchup as well. And then the Browns in Cincinnati as well. But, the Browns have been the Bengals. They have just been the kryptonite of the Bengals. And I just think the Bengals winning out is the toughest part of this scenario, Mon. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there is a slim chance. I think it's going to be really. I just don't see it happening. I would love to come back in 4 weeks and say I was wrong. I think actually the Bengals winning out is the easiest thing. I think the Steeler game is going to be their division, and I think they're going to be resting a lot of players. So I think the Bengals could win out. It's just all those other pieces have to fall in place. Hey, did anybody think that the Bengals would win after that block punt the other night? I mean, look what happened. All those maybe the luck is turning in our favor now, because we've had a series of really odd finishes this year. It's going to be tough. I just look back in frustration, not to be negative here, but you can't lose games to the Patriots. You can't come out sluggish in training camp and lose these first 2-3 games of the season, because those games matter. And that has been a trend with Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor is going to be the head coach next year. I'm not anti-Zach. He's going to be there. I'm not trying to say I want him replaced, but you can't have that trend because every game matters. Every game matters. And I would love to have that Patriot game right now. I would love to have it. I would love to have one of those Raven games. We had a 14-point lead against the Ravens in the second half, lost. We had 3 10-point leads against the Ravens in the first game, lost. So I would love to have one of those games.
Fourth down and 16. One play. I know. He's got to make one play.
I'm not trying to go, but I'm just saying those games matter.
I know.
It sucks. It sucks. But you know what? I think the Bengals are going to win I think they're going to finish 9-8. I'm calling it right now. I really think they will. And I just don't think it's going to be enough to get us in the playoffs.
This is what you can't do, Mon, right? You can't go 1-5 at home, right? I mean, you cannot go 1-5 at home. You cannot go 2-7 in one-score games. You can't do those things. Those things are not ever going to add up into your favor. To me, that is the key, right? Is the 1-5 at home, the 2-7 in one-score games. I mean, this team, and again, I hate saying this as a coach. I absolutely hate it. But this team is literally 4 plays away from winning this division. I mean, it's insane to think about it, as bad as this defense has been. But this team is 4 plays away. A 4th and 16, a mishold on a field goal, a 2-point conversion, a missed field goal against the Chargers. I mean, this team is just, it's maddening, Mon. It's so hard to wrap your mind around the way this season has gone and how good our players are. Jamar Chase just got player of the week again. I mean, this guy, it's just hard. This has been the most frustrating year that I can remember in a very long time. And yes, Brandon, you're right. 2 or 3 stops on defense, and this team has got 9 or 10 wins. It's crazy. Eric?
I think Mon had something to say. Go ahead, Mon.
No, I just, I'm just showing my age here. Jake, you're not as old as me, but you've been a Bengal fan since the early 80s. And it's just the Bengals have always been this way. They've always had elite skill players, elite wide receivers, great running backs, top-notch quarterbacks. They get in shootouts every year. And those rare occasions where they have a good defense, a good physical defense, they tend to take it to another level. I think, I tweeted something the other day. My number one wish whenever this season ends, I want the 2025 Bengals to be a physically tougher team. I want them to have physically imposing players. I'm sick and tired of getting punched. I want them to punch. That's what I want from my Cincinnati Bengals. Look what's happened this year. When a team gets ahead of us, they control the clock, they run it down our throat, they beat us up. We don't get the ball back. All right, our offense has had to, our guys have had to be Superman this year, and I just don't want that, because if we really think that, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow, they're going to play at elite levels for years, but they're not going to be at this level every single year. Our defense has to catch up and help them.
Yeah, and you talked about it, Mon, about this team, and again, we're older. We've been Bengal fans for a long time. You talked about the skill. What do the Bengals draft the best? Quarterback, wide receiver, and running back. Those are the three positions that this team has always drafted well. Always. Obviously, there's been some duds here and there. But when you look at the quarterbacks that this team has drafted over the years, and Burrow and Palmer, and even Andy Dalton, Ken Anderson, Boomer Esiason, this team has hit year in and year out every time they've drafted a quarterback. They've hit at receiver. Look at all the incredible Carl Pickens, one of you and I's favorite players that has ever put on the stripes. Carl Pickens, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, AJ Green, Chad Johnson, TJ Hushmanzada. This team has just hit and hit running back.
Hey, young Bengal fans, what you're seeing from Chase and Higgins, we saw in Pickens and Scott in the 80s.
Oh, yes.
They were so dominant.
Like,
but you know what? That was some of the worst stretch of Bengals football, though, because our trenches and our defense was terrible.
Our defense was sucked. Our
offensive line was terrible. We couldn't run them. But, okay, let's get to the game.
Yeah, we got to get to the game. Before we do, though, we do have a super chat from KP from KC.
All right,
so
thanks, KP.
There. KP says, Zach Taylor, a.k.a. Jim Mora. This team will be built like the Manning Colts teams. Draft a safety, pass rusher, and DT. They have to get up on teams. It's kind of what I said earlier. We need to finally replace Jesse Bates with a amazing rangy safety and grab a couple other guys. So I agree. You guys agree?
Agree.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. They were a well-rounded team. They had a Hall of Fame pass rusher. They had some really good players.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to we're 53 minutes in and we haven't talked about this week's game. So appreciate almost 400 people in the chat tonight. Let's
awesome.
talk about
Thank
how
you,
the
guys.
Bengals. Let's talk about how the Bengals can go back to Tennessee for the 300th straight year and come home with a victory this week. What are your guys' keys to this game?
Mon, you want to start?
Sure. Protect Joe. It's when you think about it, it's a really bad matchup. Their defensive line is good. Guys, last year, our worst loss of the year last year was against the Titans. They dominated us. They kicked our butt. That was the worst loss, one of the worst losses in the era of Zach Taylor. They destroyed us last year. A lot of those players are still here. That interior offensive line has to dig down deep inside and play a little better because they're going to come after Joe. Joe's nicked up. His knee is hurt. And I'm telling you, they got to protect him more. He's some of these sacks are on Joe because he's holding on to the ball. He's fearless. He's trying to create plays. They have to give him a couple extra seconds. The Bengals have to win this game. They're the better team. But playing on the road in Tennessee is going to be tough. You can't let that Levis, he's got a cannon of an arm. You cannot let him come in there and have the game of the season.
I don't know how tough it'll be because I showed you guys the other day. It's really on my list. I still might pull the trigger and go because good tickets are $35. So I don't know how many Tennessee fans are actually going to the game. So there might not be that big. It might be a Bengals fans takeover. This is only 3 hours from Cincinnati. I would be shocked if there's not more orange than blue in the stadium.
Well, Eric, can you get like Jeff Simmons and Sweat in the stands with you and have them not play? That would be great.
I mean, I could bring him cookies,
Okay, yeah. Excellent.
Mark, I just want to say, Mark, you are 100% right, Mark. Obviously, Collinsworth and Eddie Brown and Tim McGee and Isaac Curtis. We go on and on. There's just so many great receivers that this team has drafted. Tyler Boyd. All right. Yes, I agree. Mon, I agree with you. This game is all about this Bengals offense versus the Titans defense, right? I mean, this Titans offense, guys, is not good. It's really not good. Will Levis has been atrocious this year. He has been benched like 4 or 5 times. Callahan has been very frustrated with him throughout the entire season. This team has been in games, but Will Levis has lost them football games. And when your quarterback is losing you football games, that is not good at all. So this offense, there is nothing that on this offense that concerns me. Even as bad as our defense is, this offense is 100 times worse. But this defensive line, Mon, is – listen, Jeffrey Simmons owns the Bengals. He owns them. He has destroyed us over the years. And then you look at Tavondre Sweat and Joseph Day. I mean, this front seven for the Titans is very good. And where they are good, Mon, is where we are bad, and that is the interior of our offensive line. So I agree with you 100%. And Bruce, I agree with you. That was going to be my next point, is Callahan knows this team, right? He knows the Bengals. And I think there's something to be said about that. Now, obviously, as a coach, you want to go in with a different game plan. But, this is not a great matchup for the Bengals. I still think the Bengals win this football game, but I do not think this is a good matchup, especially for the interior of our offensive line trying to block Sweat and Simmons, two of the best defensive tackles in football. Mon, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Look at the comments.
Yes.
No, the Titans play a 3-4 defense. And the Bengals don't do well in 3-4 defenses. Arden Key and Landry are great pass rushers. The Steeler game, for example, Cincinnati's offense I know they scored a lot of points a couple weeks ago against Steelers. Steelers had 3 turnovers against us, though. Look last year when Browning, his 2 worst games, and he played good last year for us. His 2 worst games are against the Steelers. Yeah. Cincinnati struggles in that when they face that style of defense. And I think it's a bad matchup, but the Bengals have to dig down deep inside and find a way to win, and I think they will.
Well, I think this Bengals offense, let me say this real quick, Eric. I think this Bengals offense is just so good, right? I mean, this is a bad matchup, and I hope I'm wrong, but Joe Burrow is going to get hit in this football game just because of this powerful rush from the interior of this defensive line versus our below average interior offensive line. But I do think that this Bengals offense is just so much better than what the Titans are putting on the field, especially offensively, that this is going to be a good win for this football team. I really feel we're going to win by a couple scores, but I do feel like it's going to be a physical game and we're probably going to get beat up. Go ahead, Eric.
So it's not just a Brian Callahan game; it's also a Cheeto Awuzie and a Tyler Boyd game.
Yes.
I think that Cheeto got his success by playing and practicing against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'm a little concerned about some of those matchups. I think our offense still goes at it, but my question for you guys is, Tyler Boyd has struggled this year. It hasn't, it's kind of like he did last year. But Tyler Boyd feasts on defenses like ours. I mean, the zone, the lazy zone that we've been playing and the stuff over the middle. Could you guys see this being Tyler Boyd's biggest game of the year against this sad defense that we have so far? What do you think, Mon?
I can. Guys, the Bengals defense, I mean, every Bengal fan knows that they are struggling. And Tyler Boyd is still capable. All these guys are NFL players. I can see them playing really well. We just need a few stops. We just need our defense to dig down deep inside also and play just a little bit better. But I did like what I saw from the young guys, Ivy, Wilson, Miles Murphy. These guys are going to come in. They're more athletic. They're faster. Yeah, they're green. I get it. But at the same time, I'll take that athleticism, that raw ability, because defense is struggling with those veterans that aren't as athletic. Let's put kids out there that can run and play, and let's see how they react. They did well last week against the Cowboys. They really did.
Yeah, just real quick, guys. Tyler Boyd on the season, 33 catches, 317 yards, and 0 touchdowns. Uh, Definitely, unfortunately, I think we're seeing the tail end of Tyler Boyd's career. And this is going to probably be a Tyler Boyd game if he's healthy. This is going to be a game where Jennifer says Tyler Boyd is hurt. I have not seen him on the injury report, although I haven't seen the injury report today.
So
But
I just pulled it up. He did go full practice today.
okay, I
Didn't
thought
practice
I heard
yesterday.
he didn't practice yesterday. Okay,
Yeah, he is full practice. I mean, the Bengals got Tyler Boyd paid so much. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off and that helps keep him on the team next year.
you can't you just see that happening, like Tyler Boyd.
Oh
It's
yeah,
his first touchdown of the year, and it's
yeah,
against the
for
Bengals
the
and all that stuff.
Bengals.
Yeah, go ahead. What are you gonna say, Mon?
No. I was putting the earplug in. Go. I'm good.
Okay. No, I'm just, I'm looking at this team. Ridley, their lean receiver, as far as receptions and yards go. And then Westbrook, only 21 catches, but 8 of them for touchdowns. So obviously that's their red zone guy. This Bengals team they need to shut down Tony Pollard, right? Pollard is really the centerpiece of this offense. He's not having a bad year, guys. Almost 1,000 yards rushing from Tony Pollard. So a guy that's kind of rejuvenated and kept his career going in Tennessee. What we got to do, guys, is put the ball in Will Levis's hands, right? Let that guy make mistakes, because we have seen some bonehead plays from Will Levis this year. And as bad as the Bengals defense has played, uh, I do feel like that is a good matchup. Our defense versus Titans offense. And I could see our defense getting a couple turnovers and making a couple plays and flipping the field position for the Cincinnati Bengals offense.
Well, and that's where you got to go. You got to lean on Lou. Lou has to take advantage of an inexperienced quarterback that's a little too arrogant and confuse him and make him make those aggressive throws that you shouldn't make. And then we got to catch the ball. You know, we've still seen some dropped interceptions. Jermaine Pratt should have had a pick six last week. We got to catch it when we have the opportunity. We don't have any graphics up here, but we'll go around the table here. Give us your predictions for this game. What do you got, Jake?
Yeah, I'm going to say 34-14. The Bengals win. Again, I said it earlier. I think the Bengals win by a couple scores. This Bengals offense, guys, is just so good. And when all those guys are on the field, Jamar and T and Joe and Chase Brown, this offense it's top 3 offense in the NFL, maybe the best offense in the NFL when it's rolling. Even though the play calling is not always great situationally, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, those guys are just elite players. This offense is so good. They're gonna score 30+ points in this football game. Mon.
I think it's going to be really close, actually. I think the Bengals win 24-21. I think they get a defensive
Wow.
touchdown. I think this Titans defense is really a bad matchup for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I think they're going to struggle to move the ball some, because that defensive line is just going to overpower our offensive line. And I think the Bengals do win this game 24-21 and keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Well, Eric said it earlier, right? If the Bengals win this football game, they're still in it. With 3 games left, they're still in it if they win this football game. And listen, Joe Burrow and those guys are not going to lose this football game.
I mean, life as a Bengals fan, they're not losing this football game, because what have the Bengals done to us our whole lives? They just keep you right holding on.
Yeah.
You have hope. You have
Yeah.
hope until you're laying in the grave. They're not losing this football game. As Bengals fans, we deserve a 42-9 game. I'm not predicting that, but we deserve that. All these one-score games, that's what we deserve. We deserve Mon and Jake to be eating ice cream cake by the third quarter on Sunday. And that's what I'm asking the universe for.
Listen, Mon's been in a very rough place with this Bengals season. There has not been a lot of ice cream cake going around.
You have to expect it. Have you even been buying the ice cream cakes? That's the problem.
I have not.
See,
No.
you got to prepare for victory.
In this
Buy the
economy,
cake.
ice cream cake.
In this economy.
I'm joking. That might be the reason they're losing. I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a close game, and I think you guys already hit on it. I think the Callahan factor, he's gonna zero in on our offense. I think he's gonna be in the defensive rooms this year for the Titans and explain to them when they're in this, they're gonna do that, when they're doing this or doing that. I think it's gonna hurt us a little bit, but I still think we win.
Let's expand on that. Do you really think so, though? I mean, I think this offense is different than when Callahan was here. Dan Pitcher has put a lot of his stamp on this offense. We see a lot more motions and a lot more pre-snap action. I don't think that it's the same offense that Callahan. It's definitely not the same offense that Callahan ran. So do we really think that he's going to have that much insight to it?
I think it's more like tendencies, right? It's these play caller tendencies and you know what Lou
go for a touchdown.
Yeah, situational stuff. What 3rd and 2, you throw it deep.
Yeah.
4th and 1, you throw it deep, 50-50 ball. No, I think it's more of that. I think it's more of what's Lou's tendency on 3rd and 5. What is Zach Taylor's tendency on 2nd and 8, and those kind of things stay true when you're a coach. But I think the plays and stuff, there's probably a lot of tweaks to what they're doing. But again, these Bengal players are so talented on offense. I don't think it matters really. What plays they're running. I think it's more just the tendencies and how the Titans play against certain situational football by the Bengals.
Go ahead, Mon. What do you think?
No. I that's valid points. I just think, I know they've altered some things. I'm sure they've tweaked them and they're prepared for it. But at the same time, he spent a lot of time here. He's best friends with Zach Taylor. He's going to be dialed in.
All right. Well, listen, guys, we will be here live right after the Bengals-Titans game. So make sure you join us live here after Bengals-Titans so we can talk about the Bengals victories and maybe some of that ice cream cake that Mon is going to have for us
on air
on Sunday. I will eat it on air at Mon's.
And just like in the Simpsons game, you can hit Mon with a donut, and Mon can hit you with the donut. Or
that'll be it.
It would be really.
That'll be if we make the playoffs. If we make the playoffs, then yes, Mon and I will on air stick donuts in each other's faces. But the Bengals got to get to the playoffs.
We might get demonetized for that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that is another edition of the Bengals Pulse. If you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you give us that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. As always, check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Cincinnati Podcast Network. Follow Mon on Twitter at @TheFireMon. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens 9. Follow Eric on Twitter at eFlash with 2 H's 88. Follow the Cincinnati Podcast Network on Twitter at Cincinnati Pod. And as always, guys, follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9. The same on Instagram without the @Bengals_Pulse9. And as always, guys, check us out right after the Bengals football games. We are live every single week. Mon, is that true? You're a firefighter. That's a dirty business. Mon, firefighter of the day. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh Lord, man,
That's
I
funny.
gotta love the fans. Gotta love the fans.
That's funny, Brandon. I like that.
Brandon, thank
Later.
you.
Last thing to say, T. Higgins, big week for T. Higgins. He's a Tennessee guy. T. Higgins scores at least 2 touchdowns, goes over 100 yards this week. This is his week.
I like it.
I like it.
I'm with you 100%. He is Eric. He is Mon. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hooday, Bengal fans. We will see you Sunday right after the game and the win for the Cincinnati Bengals. Sunday, 1 o'clock. We'll see you guys then.